what does D2C mean? Like, what's the purpose? Are we trying to, make this a big revenue driver? And the answer is like, it's not a huge sales driver, right? Yes, it's meaningful and it is becoming a larger percentage, but we're not looking at sales as the main metric here. We're looking at that connected commerce journey. How are we creating the shortest, most friction-free path to purchase? What we have found is D2C is such an important, I would argue, vital part in that journey, right? It's a way that we're collecting more consumer data. It's a way we're serving our consumer better, even if we might have to lose some money on that first order. How are we creating that perfect kind of experience for the first time you try that new cereal or that new bar or whatever that might be? The consumers of today are expecting personalized value at every touch point. Sometimes that requires you to own the rails for a few transactions.
Hello and welcome to the D2C Podcast. I'm Eric Dyck. Today we're taking a trip down the cereal aisle with General Mills global lead for D2C, Carter Jensen. 2 years ago, Carter joined the $18 billion 100-year-old company with the task of building out the direct-to-consumer business framework for General Mills. This podcast is a rundown of the biggest challenges, wins, and insights he's generated along the way. You'll hear all about how Ratio, General Mills keto brand group, and their hybridized retail/D2C experience that meets the customer where they are. You'll hear all about the connected commerce journey and why D2C really ties the room together for the big General Mills. You'll also hear about the anatomy of a General Mills product drop, including the one they did for Stranger Things and Cinnamon Toast Crunch in the Upside Down. You got to see it to believe it. On with the show. Thousands of people have jump-started their TikTok content strategy using Kohli's TikTok Creative Brief template. That's because it has all the steps for successful creator collaborations and best practices to create fun and engaging TikToks. If you haven't grabbed your copy yet, don't worry. Kohli just dropped a brand new version of their popular template filled with even more tips and insights to level up your TikTok game. Head to kohli.com/TikTok to download your free copy and start creating TikToks for your brand that people actually want to watch. Welcome to the D2C Podcast, Carter. Can you tell me, when you first joined General Mills in 2020, what exactly were you tasked with doing at that time?
Yeah, Eric, thank you so much for having me. It's a great question. So I joined General Mills in the midst of the pandemic. So in June of 2020, we started here at Mills in the basement on the global e-com team. And I mean basement in my home basement, not here at Mills. But again, we were in the midst of the pandemic, working from home. And my focus here early on was all about really kind of diving into the global e-com world, right? So we were tasked with finding areas of opportunity around the globe, figure out how do we continue to accelerate our e-com strategy, specifically in the midst of a pandemic. So the scope was really broad, but I quickly found myself square in the middle of D2C here at General Mills just a few months after that.
Yeah, when you mentioned the basement, I just think of the X-Files. I think you got Mulder and Scully in the basement, coming up with ways to bring D2C to the whole company. Must have been an interesting challenge. Were you given a lot of leeway? Like describe a little bit about what it's like inside General Mills, and the general attitudes towards e-commerce. I guess in the pandemic, everyone was accelerated.
100%. Yeah. And accelerates our core strategy here at General Mills, which we talk about all the time on a myriad of investor calls. But the core thing that we are really invested to is what we call connected commerce. And connected commerce, as you can imagine, we start with kind of this e-com focus. We moved into this world of omni-channel, and we like to think of connected commerce as one step beyond. And it's the full umbrella, and I won't get too far into it, but it's the full umbrella that embraces everything, right? It embraces our shopper teams. It embraces our core customers, as you can imagine, the Walmarts, the Targets, the Krogers of the world. And then it goes beyond. And this is where our team really likes to play, and where D2C comes into play, is trying to figure out what is the shortest, most friction-free path to purchase for our consumers. And what's amazing about what we have today are tools that allow us to do that in really interesting ways. And so you look at like some of the things our customers have done over the last couple of years. You just think of like curbside, new delivery options. We're even playing with different things with quick commerce. It unlocks a world of opportunities for us to create unique experiences. And so that's what my team really focuses on now. Though I started in June of 2020 now, which was about 2 years ago, really focusing on the e-com acceleration. Now we're looking at connected commerce and figuring out, what do we do to go a step beyond kind of the core traditional channels? What is that next kind of blue sky, that next horizon that we can start playing and experimenting within? How do we be on our toes versus our heels as we look to what the next iteration of commerce might be? And it's a really exciting place, as you can imagine, especially in a manufacturer of food. And we just feel really lucky that we get to play in that new horizon.
Can you give me an example of connected commerce at play? Like what do you like? Give me an example of a brand that's leveraging connected commerce right now.
Totally. And of course, I'm going to pick on some of, the brands that I know and love, and especially one that really leverages DTC in a unique way. And I'm sure we'll get more into this as we kind of dive into some of the case studies that my team has led. But we recently just launched a new store for Ratio Keto bars. So Ratio is a smaller product line that we have that's a really kind of interesting play. We're focused really on the keto conscious consumer. Really easy to eat, easy to snack on, easy to grab and go bars. They also have yogurts and a couple other products that allow kind of the new keto consumer to really kind of have that convenience and different, kind of product utility at play. And so for us, what we did is we built this really beautiful new .com for the keto consumer. And we didn't stop there, right? So when you think about connected commerce, Eric, you had mentioned, what's a good example. And so for this, we knew that the keto consumer was looking for solutions online, right? Whether that was new recipes or hacks or solutions for kind of the new diet they were taking on. And so we wanted to build a system that could meet them where they are, right? Online, looking for those solutions, and not just drop them into like a retailer PDP, not just hit them with an awareness banner that says, buy more Ratio Keto bars, but create a really connected commerce now. So we may hit them with a, banner ad, or we might hit them with a really kind of interesting hook from a paid media perspective. But then when they land in the .com, the location of that landing spot is a beautiful kind of value add commerce experience. You can learn more about the keto diet. You can learn more about the products. But right next to it on our PDP pages, we have all of the different ways that you can actually purchase the bar, right? So it's not just, hey, buy it at Target, or hey, just buy it at Walmart. We have ways that they can buy direct to consumer, right? So if they want to pack of 16 bars on their front step in 2 days, we enable them to do that. But also, if you're driving home by a Target, want to do curbside, you're only a click away from adding it really to kind of your Target order. And we don't actually end there either, right? So now that we know the consumer, we can follow up with them. And if they're buying a 30-day pack, you better believe that in 20 days, we're following up with an incentive maybe for them to purchase again. Maybe that's a coupon. Maybe that's a customized email that really personalizes the value add as they work towards their keto journey. So it's a very stereotypic example, and one I'm really excited about because we just launched it. But you can see how we're not just going from awareness media and dropping into PDPs. We're really following them through that entire commerce journey and connecting each individual touch point along the way.
It's kind of breaking outside of Shopify a little bit, right? Like, so many advertisers listening to us, just like Shopify is sort of the be all end all, but you're sort of engineering a solution that, works on a more holistic level. So Carter, how does General Mills break down the way it thinks about the D2C space today?
Yeah, totally. So it's a great question, and it's actually interesting because we see kind of three unique categories that we're kind of running D2C activations in and really kind of pushing D2C. So I mentioned I joined in 2020, and one of my first kind of goals or really kind of directives was go find what's going on in the organization, as I mentioned. And what I was finding was that D2C was springing up little pockets of energy across the org. So we had, teams in our founders organization, or G-Works, where they're coming up with new brands and new products, and they're going D2C, launching digitally native products. And they had a lot of different activities going on within that world. Our brand teams were doing D2C for partnerships or exclusive product drops, really kind of paying off different campaigns. And so you had that strategy. And then you also had some of our products, if you look across our portfolio, specific products kind of lead their way kind of to more of a traditional D2C path. And so those teams and those brand leaders were going against kind of the traditional sales metrics, right? So today we've built a capability that supports each one of them in a unique way. Obviously, there are some consistencies within tools and capabilities, but there's also a ton of differences. And so as we move into year two, we're seeing this kind of exponential growth in each one of those categories, and we're continuing to support them in those unique ways.
How many activations would you say you've sort of launched? I know the way that you work is with individual founding teams. You say pockets of energy. I think that's interesting because that's really what it comes down to in this industry, I think, is people and their talent. And that's where you're not going to be able to do it with a playbook. Everything needs to be done kind of by great people. So that's a cool way to view it.
Yeah, so it's interesting because as you think about the three different kind of categories, you have some brands that are always on, right? You have drops and kind of brand promotions that are constantly cycling. And then you have the founders teams who might be, putting a product into market, and they might not have found the right product market fit they were going for. And so they'll recycle and try something different. And so we're constantly seeing that rollover. But overall, we're seeing about 30 different activations a year that my team oversees. As you mentioned too, we're not necessarily the quarterback in each one of those, right? We're kind of the supporting role. We're the coach. We bring the capability. We bring, the kind of expertise from a D2C perspective to the table so that the teams that know their brands the best can actually lead that project. But we bring the intricacy and kind of expertise from a D2C perspective in order to make that happen. So we're a lean, mean team of four of us, and we're international. So we cover the whole globe. But that's really kind of the system that we've put into place to be able to scale and kind of own all 30 of those activations to ensure that everyone has what they need.
What's been the biggest challenge about this role at General Mills? What's about activating e-commerce across the organization?
Well, totally. So the e-com question is big. So let me just maybe start with the D2C perspective, and then I can kind of expand to the e-com one, because that's obviously a huge, not only initiative, but priority, obviously, for our organization. From a D2C's perspective, I just think that no one realized, and everyone who's listening to this is what you live and breathe each and every day. But no one realized kind of the depth of expertise that we had to bring to the table. So a great example is like the supply chain and logistics. No one does supply chain and logistics better than General Mills, right? We've been doing it for 150 years flawlessly, and we were super proud of that. But shipping truckloads to Walmart and to Target is very different than shipping an individual pack to a household in, let's say, Tennessee. And so what we had to do is we had to build a stack of kind of capabilities that spanned every kind of touch point within what's needed for D2C. So we had marketing, the commerce platform, accounting, finance, supply chain, fulfillment, and we had to kind of fill that gap. So we brought kind of the best team to the table. So when I joined, I was not an expert in 3PLs and kind of the logistics behind what it takes to be successful in that world. And I won't say I'm necessarily an expert today, but I definitely know enough to be dangerous. We know enough to accurately serve our teams. And you can imagine that kind of example spans again to that accounting, to the marketing, to the platform and technology side of things. And so that was the biggest challenge was, we couldn't just come in and say, oh yeah, I know Shopify, I know how to do marketing. Like you had to do so much more. And I think that's, something I'm really proud of is that we can bring that whole solution to the table and to make sure that everyone can accomplish D2C with speed.
And I imagine there's no, like across these brands, there's probably no one size fits all solution. So, but everything requires a bit of a framework, but then a lot of flexibility within that, I'd imagine.
Yeah, totally. And again, to pick on something that I know the listeners of this podcast talk about all the time, but one thing we're super lucky to have in this kind of day and age is we do have kind of modern MarTech or technology tools that can scale in really unique ways. And what's great is, we're a Shopify, partner, and we can deploy a Shopify site for an experimental brand that might just want to get into market to mess with some product market fit or try a new service offering or whatever. And we can spin that up and have them ready, before lunch, right? But at the same time, some of our biggest D2C systems are also running on Shopify. Now they're supported and built in a little bit of a different way, as you can imagine. But like when we look at those types of tools, I just feel super lucky. So, we pick Shopify for a reason. We have kind of that nimble nature of the fast moving kind of experimental type brands or the promotional drops or whatever it might be. And then we kind of have that long-term solution. And of course, our agency support system fits right into that. We have great agency partners that support Shopify. And then of course, the app ecosystem that we kind of plug into also really helps us out because we can add capabilities pretty quickly. And so we lean heavily on really kind of what I like to think is a modern tech stack compared to the rest of the organization, because it gives us that speed, and thanks to kind of the quality of those tools today, it gives us that scale as well.
And you have to, just because there's not, right. Like you say, you're built for mass distribution, which is the major advantage that a company like General Mills has. You literally own the whole aisles in once a week for people walking through the store. So that's what's interesting to me is when a company like this can have that distribution locked up. Like what D2C enables, like what does D2C enable for General Mills? Bearing in mind that you have the distribution piece locked up.
Totally. And I think what it enables is different for each one of those categories, right? And so we can dive into whichever one we think is best. But if you think of, for some of our founders teams, we're starting new brands that might not be, totally fleshed out yet. We're still kind of working with what's going to best serve that new consumer, in terms of a product. What D2C enables, it enables us to get product in consumers' hands quickly, right? It allows us to go digitally first. It allows us to, ship right from our, test plant and ship it to people's homes. And now, not only do we have product in their hands, but we have all the first party data around who they are. And so we can follow up with questions and maybe even ask for interviews to kind of get feedback on how they like the product. And that's what D2C is enabling. It's enabling speed from a experimental point of view. From a promotional point of view, when we do these drops, like there's nothing better than being able to actually send physical products to people that are coming from, like, let's say a new partnership, whether that's with our partnership with, Stranger Things, right? Or it might be our partnership with, Cause, like we did with Reese's just a couple months ago. But of course, everyone sees it coming to life online. It's leaked on Reddit, whether it's paid or owned, Instagram and TikTok stuff is everywhere. But the idea that people can actually click through in one or two taps and actually have the physical product at their front door in a really beautiful kind of collector's like case, it's pretty amazing. We're pretty making this physical experience come to life from kind of what used to just be digital realms. So it enables, I think, a really kind of immersive fanatic experience for kind of our most true and avid kind of fanatics across the organization. And then from a sales perspective, yes, of course, sales are a big part of that, but we're also learning more about the consumer. As you can imagine, it's a great source of data for us. We're able to understand who the consumer is, and then we're able to personalize messaging like we haven't been able to do before. And so as you can see, kind of what D2C enables for each one of those categories is so different. And that's why we support each kind of in a unique and individual way.
Let's talk drops. Like you mentioned Stranger Things. I just
For
watched
sure.
the first episode, was just freaked right out by a couple of the scenes in that first episode. But you showed me the link to this limited edition, upside down, cinnamon toast crunch Stranger Things. Talk about the anatomy of General Mills drop. Like what goes into that?
For sure, yeah. So that was one of my favorite collector's boxes. It actually had a fold out. Everything was upside down. It was really cool. And, we still have a couple floating around here, so I'll see if I can get my hands on one. But yeah, so the anatomy of a drop. So obviously each one's different based on the partner, right? So, we're working with Netflix in terms of Stranger Things. We're working with Cause in terms of the Reese's Puff work that we did. But the anatomy of a drop is what I love is that D2C is really kind of this kicker that comes in at the end of the campaign. So our brand teams and the leaders within our partnerships organization, the leaders within the brand experience teams are really leading that relationship. So what once was just a digital kind of campaign, now we can bring in D2C and actually allow our consumers to get this product in their hands. And so usually what ends up happening is that we have a limited quantity of maybe a special edition product. And these are our collector's boxes, usually when we're talking about cereal. And they come in this beautiful kind of case, acrylic case that you can set up. And it's just really cool. So we'll get a handful of these, right? Maybe a few thousand, maybe more than that. And we hype it up, right? We use the partnership, we use kind of maybe the celebrity that we're working with to really kind of talk about how, the launch is coming. It's going to be at 9 a.m. Eastern or whatever it might be. And we have to build the infrastructure and really kind of the platform in order to facilitate that flawlessly, right? Now, has it always been perfect? We've learned a lot, as you can imagine, over the last 2 years. But now I like to boast the last few have been really flawless, as I knock on wood, where we will run through tens of thousands of units of these special edition, acrylic coated boxes in a matter of seconds. And again, a nod to both the team we have here and the agencies that back us and the tech stack we've built. We flawlessly accept those orders and we collect user data to ensure that we're accurately communicating to these consumers about where the product is and shipping and all that kind of fun stuff. And then the orders are placed to the 3PL network that we've built and are usually out the door before business close that day, on doorsteps the next morning. So it is really interesting to see how D2C has come to life for these drops, really kind of putting this physical spin, allowing actual physical products in consumers' hands to what once was more of a digitally first kind of promotion.
Wrong size, wrong color, didn't look right in the living room? There are hundreds of reasons your customers return products, but returns don't have to be goodbyes. They can be an opportunity to complete the shopping experience. Built exclusively for Shopify, Loop lets you create a delightful return experience to attract and retain more customers. By making it easy for your customers to find products they love, they'll come back again and again. See why thousands of Shopify brands like Allbirds, Chubbies, and Brooklinen trust Loop as their return partner at loopreturns.com/DTC. We're partnered with Pilot House, the agency. We're very an ad focused group. What would you say in your activations? Where have ads played the best role? Like, what's an instance where either paid social ads or Google ads paid either a profitable or just a really strong role for one of these activations?
Yeah, totally. And I'll even go beyond kind of drops. And I think you could apply it to drops or even our always on channels or maybe even experimentation. But one of the things we've loved and what we think has really unlocked is once we move our products to D2C, it unlocks the product catalogs, which enables brand new ad units, both from a paid and own perspective, right? So what was once basic, if you think of like that dynamic product ad unit, right? From a paid perspective, I think, we've been using, or people who've been listening to this podcast have been using it for, I think it's been around for 5, 6 years, right? It's been around for a long time. What's different is we haven't traditionally been able to use those because we don't have product catalogs. We have catalogs within our customers, right? We have Target catalogs, and we have Walmart catalogs, and of course, based on kind of some of the rules and laws around that, we can drop people in and do that kind of thing. But we've never been able to use basic things like product tags and things like that. And what we have found is that D2C, enabling that product catalog and enabling kind of that direct connection between our owned platforms and then our social platforms, has opened up this world for us to finally jump on the bandwagon of new ad units, or ad units have been around for a while but are new to us. And then my team is focusing to go a step further to figure out, okay, now that we've unlocked that, like, what does this new world of social commerce mean for not only drops, but these always on channels, right? Like, what happens if we can go from a recipe video to either having it on your way or adding it to your cart in a single click? Like, it's pretty incredible to see how, we see all this content going viral, specifically on TikTok. Look at food. Like, I can now get that in the mail or in your cart for Target curbside or Walmart curbside in a matter of a click or two. And it's just unlocking all these new opportunities for us, which is really exciting.
Is tracking possible through those, like through things like curbside? Is there a way? Because obviously attribution is something you always talk about when you're driving through Shopify. You hope you have that sales attribution, although increasingly it appears to be off. Is it something you can drive through these other channels?
Traditionally, no. So it's really challenging, as you can imagine, right? So
Yeah.
we use partnerships with, companies like Hyphen, which is a shoppable partner that we use. We use Basketful and Whisk and those other types of things where, there are these interstitial partners that allow really great user experiences to go traditionally from link click, right, into this shoppable platform. Then they can choose your retailer if you're not going traditionally D2C. And I mentioned earlier in the program when we talked a little bit about Ratio Foods, which is a brand that we just launched. And what we've done is we've slammed kind of our retail partners and our D2C offering together into one kind of landing location. And so what this allows us to do is allows us to track all the way through, and we own the rails, like when we own the purchase. And then when we don't own the purchase, when the consumer chooses that they would like to go to a retail partner of ours, we can see all the way to add to basket. And then from then on, it's a little bit of a guessing game. But we think the add to basket rate's a pretty good metric. And then, of course, we have different kind of equations that we can run to understand the kind of propensity to purchase based on that add to basket and based on the complexity of the order. So we're pretty close. We're closer than we've been before. And when we slam kind of traditional D2C and kind of these retail partners, what we're using Hyphen for together, yes, there are gaps in the picture, but we're able to paint a much clearer picture than we ever have been able to before.
When you talked about product catalogs previously, would this all be an individual brand? Like, would you be seeing different kinds of Cheerios, for instance, or is there that play to like replicate the cereal aisle in a catalog ad across all of your brands?
Yeah, totally. So right now it's brand by brand, right? And it's all based on how the brand would like to go to market. So like if you think about the Ratio brands, right? Ratio has bars and yogurt and some other different ancillary products with more products on the way. So the platform is ready to go. So it's got, our morning foods team involved. It's got our snacks team involved. It's kind of got all corners of the world coming in to build this one beautiful catalog for the Ratio line. Now it's interesting, and I won't promise anything here, but the tools are now at our team's fingertips, right? So though we don't necessarily have an activation to say we're replicating the cereal aisle, because of the capabilities we've built, which we're calling D2C, but in reality, as you can see, kind of understand as we're talking, like it's much beyond transaction, right? The reality is that our, morning foods team could call us up and we could have a replicated cereal aisle in a matter of weeks, right? Versus months and years, which traditional teams have brought in. And so that's what we love about what we bring. You and I can brainstorm all day, but there's no one that knows those opportunities better than the brand leaders who are, meeting with our consumers all the time. They know like what our retail partners are looking for. They know kind of, what is their priority and opportunities for the year. And traditionally, technology has always been this barrier. We've just completely knocked that down. We say, hey, the tools are here. Like, what do we want to do? And so we've seen some really interesting things come out in the last 6 months. And on the roadmap for the next 6 months is some other things that we can't talk about. But, we're starting to figure out, like, what does that portfolio play look like? And we're ready to go based on this kind of tool set that we've built.
I was talking about it, in the pre-interview, but we've got like, in this agency that we're partnered with, there's a channel, I think 30 people
Right.
dedicated to just cereal lovers. It's just cereal lovers. So I just feel like that there is such a palpable experience in that cereal aisle. People have such an attachment to the different kinds of cereals and limited editions. I just think there's a real
100%.
opportunity for that. So I hopefully you can send this podcast to some of those brand leaders, because I think you
I
need to
know.
get in the cereal
Get
aisle
that moving.
on
Well, I was thinking
catalogs.
it's like, all right, we'll do some cereal and some chilled milk all in a nice, beautiful case, and it can come to you via one of our quick commerce partners in a matter of minutes. It'll be perfect, right?
Oh my God, limited edition. You get artist
I
editions of
know.
their favorite cereals. Oh my goodness.
Well, Eric, as I
I
said, I'm gonna pack up some stuff from around the office. We'll go to our store here, which is just down the hallway, and I'll pack up some Cheerios and things for your team, and we'll make sure they're taken care of.
oh, I love it. And for my daughter, she's a huge Cheerios fan.
100%.
Multigrain, I'll plug her. She's already
Multigrain,
eating
that's right.
multigrain Cheerios, so she's ahead
See?
of the game.
Good for her. We'll get her some multigrain Cheerios, no problem.
Amazing. So, you mentioned this earlier, and to me, I just think it's so interesting when you work with so many products that are so ubiquitous to so many people. Like, what does influencer marketing even mean? Like, if people just like put their camera up to their cereal cupboards, half of them would have your products in them as native ad placements. So how does a division like yours, specifically within General Mills, view influencer marketing?
Totally. So you can look at this through kind of our marketing efforts, and obviously each individual brand is going to kind of leverage this in different ways, right? So our Reese's and let's say our Cinnamon Toast Crunch and those types of things are going to be very different than, let's say, the multigrain Cheerios that your daughter likes. And of course, the brand leaders and the partnerships team who are overseeing these brands are really at the forefront of what that might be. For us, we love this idea of influencer marketing. We're able to get our brands to be a part of culture, and we think it's really important. And I think, it's kind of our duty to continue to deliver on that, even though, our brands are ubiquitous. They've been around for over 100 years. And so who better to be a part of culture and who better to kind of continue to shape what the world sees and looks like than some of the brands that we have kind of all known and love and grown up with. I think Saturday morning cartoons, are right in line with the products that we deliver. So for us, what we love is that, over the last 10 years, we've seen the shift of, like, of course, all these partnerships and influencer programs are all online, right? And we can talk about whether we're doing cooking with an influencer, which obviously is big for some of our baking kind of organization. Think Betty Crocker, think Pillsbury, think those types of things, or just more kind of culture focused influencers for some of the cereal brands and snack brands that we use. What I love is now we can actually pay off those partnerships and pay off those partnerships from a brand owned perspective. And I mean that by saying, let's not just look at beautiful recipes, let's buy beautiful recipes and you should make it for your family tonight, right? Let's not just, crave about the, let's say Dunkaroos or the Gushers that you're seeing, at 10 o'clock on a Friday night after you get home with your friends, right? Like, let's allow you to get that delivered by GoPuff with two taps. Like, how are we creating that connected commerce experience from the influencer, right? From that content they're creating, all the way to having that product in your hands if you don't already have it. And I think that's what we are excited about, because not only it's because of the capability, I can boast about our team all we want, but like the capabilities that we're seeing our retailers bring to the table, the capabilities we're seeing some of these startups bring to the table, just completely unlock those types of what we call connected commerce experiences. And I think it's our job and a huge opportunity for my team and for our kind of group as we look to that is like, how are we making sure we're doing the best we can to deliver upon that? Like, how do we not just have an influencer who posts beautiful pictures, endorses the product, but allows you to take action, right? And I think that's what this connected commerce ecosystem, that's what this new D2C ecosystem is finally bringing to the table. And we're just seeing the start of it.
So where does Amazon, where does the elephant in the room fit into the distribution strategy?
For sure. And as you can imagine, Amazon's, a loyal customer and something that we partnership we treasure, obviously. We do, my team focuses more on, what does 3P mean for some of our startup brands, right? If 1P doesn't necessarily make sense, like we look at some of the 3P options. And what's interesting is brands who are looking to go to 3P, maybe because it's quicker, they just want to get into market and try something really quick, need some of the same infrastructure that our D2C kind of brands need. They needed to understand, what does fulfillment look like? They need to understand, what does individual product labeling, mean? You have to figure out, like, how do you build a PDP page? And as you can imagine, for people who are listening to this, it's obviously very easy to think about for founders teams who might have a focus in product engineering or consumer insights, and that's where they excel. they've never maybe built a PDP page. They don't understand the anatomy of what that looks like. And so again, we'd like to partner with them. I come from a weird background where, I've done some Amazon 3P work in addition to my D2C, world. And we say, great, like let's help you get into that world. And let's pair you with an agency or pair you with the right support group, or maybe it's getting you in touch with our Amazon core team, which is, of course, an incredibly strong part of the organization. And to say, like, how do we take maybe this really small brand and use Amazon's tools, whether it's 3P or something else, in order to achieve that objective, whether that's testing in market or driving scale or moving on more to be a 1P brand eventually. But that's really the way that we overlap with Amazon here at General Mills, which is very different than our core business.
Very cool. Yeah, I've got Unilever's coming on the podcast in the next couple of weeks to talk a little bit about their go-to-market strategy and their product testing strategy. And I know that I can tease that it definitely involves Amazon as a major pillar. So you can compare notes after that.
I'm super curious. And of course, we're looking at the marketplace solutions for a lot of our other customers too, right? There's other customers who are coming to life with different marketplace solutions, different kind of 3P-like type offerings. And, we're really in tune to that because now, again, thanks to this infrastructure, it's no longer a daunting ask. The business leaders can focus on the business challenge and the business ask rather than seeing all these kind of barriers in terms of technology. We got the fulfillment, we have the infrastructure, we have the tech, and now we can fully take advantage of it. And I think that's just what's been really valuable to the organization.
I'm just looking. So $17.63 billion in 2020 was the reported revenue. I don't know how accurate that is. I think it's a public company, so probably pretty accurate. What do you think? Where does D2C go? How big can D2C get for a company like General Mills? I know there's all these other reasons you've articulated for why it's valuable, but where the rubber meets the road, like how big can D2C get for General Mills?
Yeah, Eric, you talk about a very highly debated topic, as you can imagine, and this has shifted. I mean, 3 or 4 times, even my short 2 years I've been here at General Mills. When I first got here, it's highly contentious. Like, what does D2C mean? Like, what's the purpose? Are we trying to, make this a big revenue driver? And the answer is like, it's not a huge sales driver, right? Yes, it's meaningful and it is becoming a larger percentage, but we're not looking at sales as the main metric here. We're looking at, again, to throw some more buzzwords at you, right? It's that connected commerce journey. How are we creating the shortest, most friction-free path to purchase? What we have found is D2C is such an important, I would argue, vital part of a stepping stone in that journey, right? It's a way that we're collecting more consumer data. It's a way we're serving our consumer better, even if we might have to lose some money on that first order. How are we creating that perfect kind of experience for the first time you try that new cereal or that new bar or whatever that might be? Now, do we have some categories that might play and see their competitors maybe doing huge amounts of revenue? 100%, right? Yes. And we have maybe some aspirations buried in there. But at the end of the day, we don't see D2C as being, let's say, the next big kind of sales channel, right? We see it as being a vital part of, as I keep mentioning, this journey. And I think the consumers of today are expecting that, we deliver personalized value at every touch point. Sometimes that requires you to own the rails for a few transactions. But at the end of the day, if Target pickup or Walmart pickup or Shipt or Instacart's the best way for you to acquire our products, like that's where we want you to go. We're lucky to have distribution. And so who are we to try to pull that away from anyone? Like we want you to go the best route that makes sense for you and your family and the situation that you're in.
To me, it's just calling out for a newsletter. This is free advice, but if you made a newsletter called The Cereal Aisle that also had a way that all your brands could sell through and you could create that nostalgic experience, tell people about product drops. I think you're in a unique position with a bunch of legacy brands that people have so much affection for. I feel like 100%. not every legacy brand has that nostalgic connection, and I feel like it's a real opportunity for General Mills there. So if you want to talk about this,
I'll steal that from you, Eric.
After.
Well,
yeah.
We'll do a couple of them. We'll do one for cereal, right? And we'll do one for kind of our meals and baking units. We'll have the Betty Crocker team on one side. I think it's good. We'll kind of diversify across things. We'll follow in your footsteps.
I love it. Okay, good. I'll be able to say I launched 1,000 newsletters. Then the big question is if we were to give you $50,000, I know that's probably dropping the bucket for some of General Mills' budgets. But right now, if we were to give you $50,000 for one of your activations, what sort of activation would you pick?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's not a drop in the bucket. It's still a lot of money, right? Regardless of where you go. I think one of the things that I continue to make my head bigger is I can do a boast about my team, right, and what we've built. But I think one of the things we're super proud of, and in a corporate environment, if you come from a big CPG or corporation, I think you'll truly understand this. But we've been able to get kind of our core costs of building new D2C, platforms incredibly low. right? So gone are the days of, having to wait months or years and huge teams for UX and UI and all this types of stuff, right? To build out kind of a starter D2C experience. And I would say, I would love to take that 50 grand and go to like one of our challenger brands. And I call challenger brands, you can define that whatever way you want, but like, I would love to go to like Gushers, right? I would love to go to, Dunkaroos. I would love to go to some of these kind of more, kind of younger adult focused type products and say like, hey, like, how do we make this the next thing? Like Totino's, right? Like, what would that look like? And how do we build a D2C experience for you? And again, like, to say we're going to ship frozen pizza rolls across the country probably isn't right, but like, what could we do? Like, could we pick some key markets and all of a sudden, do something a little different, or how do we back that up? And I think I would use it to try to figure out like, what's a new kind of crazy idea that we could take D2C without necessarily worrying too much about how profitable the whole thing was, but just to deliver like a new experience on behalf of, as you mentioned, Eric, like one of those iconic brands. Like, how do you get Gushers back in your house after you've had it, right?
First of all, I know we're in the Matrix because literally I just went shopping on Sunday, and for the first time in my life, my daughter was like, "Give me those," and they're Gushers. And I was like explaining to her about that. So they're like a regular gummy, but there's this like goo inside.
There's stuff in the middle, yeah.
She's all in, just like Totino's. So I'm seeing you like things stuffed in the middle, but I think you nailed it. Like Cinnamon Toast Crunch is the thing in some ways, right? Like it captured the imagination. It's this like, for some reason, it's the cereal people talk about. So yeah, how do you create other situations to make things become the thing in culture?
Totally, yeah, and like even look at things like the idea of this air fryer that's coming. All of a sudden everyone has air fryers, which is super cool. And for me, I always grew up of putting pizza rolls in the microwave, right? That's just how I grew up. And Eric, you probably said the same thing. We kind of live in the same world of like, and you dealt with the product that came out of that, right? Which you knew would be better if you put it in the oven, but you needed them now. Like you needed it, in 4 minutes, right? The air fryer has like opened up this new opportunity, and it's not just for pizza rolls. We have a whole new line of recipes for Pillsbury that are all about the air fryer. Like, imagine if you started like playing on that kind of convenience role, and as your daughter gets into pizza rolls, make sure you have that air fryer.
I love it. And this is an idea that this podcast isn't out yet, but I've mentioned it a few times on different podcasts, but it's from the Tab Sex Chocolate guys. And I don't know if you don't know about this, but they created an aphrodisiac chocolate that is it's this totally sort of viral experience. But what they've done on social media is they've actually sort of they've partnered with influencers in a way where they get to become franchises, where it's sort of like, so they have multiple influencers that have like almost their own storefront, where they then become the Tabs chocolate influencer with this focus, or the Tabs chocolate influencer that does this. So I wonder if there's a play ever where you could have, influencers who sort of like get bequeathed the brand for a period of time or something. Anyways, wild idea. You'll have to listen to that podcast.
I'm taking all these ideas, Eric, because this is like a free brainstorming session that we're just creating here, and it's like, I wonder what we could do. Like, I mean, even if you think about like gaming, right? You see a lot of our brands playing kind of in the gaming space, and we align really well with some of the gaming, kind of things. But like, what would be a special product line coming out of? I won't even mention names, right? But like, how could we maybe reconfigure something that would allow, let's say, an influencer to kind of own it for their category? And the world is our oyster, and now with D2C and kind of the capabilities we built, it's possible.
Amazing. Nice. Well, let's leave it there for now. I think we'll probably have to do a check-in once some of these plans that you're working on come to fruition. We can kind of check back in on how they went. This has been awesome, Carter. Thanks for coming on the D2C podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate it.
Just quickly, if people want to reach out, are you available on LinkedIn? Is that something you'd be interested in? Yeah,
for sure. LinkedIn is best. You can just look me up, Carter Jensen. There's a couple of us. We're all friends, oddly enough. I reached out to them about 5 years ago, but you'll find me, Carter Jensen at General Mills, with no problem.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at direct-to-consumer, all one word, .co. I'm Eric Dyck, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.